Federal trial. Combs' ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, she is one of Combs' many accusers, testifying as a central witness. Is she ready?
Very ready. Confident.
Among other things, the singer is expected to address the 2016 video of Combs'
When Cassie Ventura entered the stand yesterday, everything fell apart, despite their claims that he was a kingmaker, a recording tycoon, and the greatest hip-hop success story. In only a few seconds, his meticulously cultivated persona was destroyed, and Diddy's face went white as his ex-partner revealed one unsettling revelation after another. The courtroom experts were taken aback. The man who used to run the game was unable to even keep his cool, and Cassie spilled the beans about everything that supposedly took place behind those closed doors.
Form-fitting, visibly pregnant, head held high, and did not make any eye contact with the defendant, with Sean Combs. She said that Sean Combs directed everything from what she had on, to the lighting in the room, to how she was supposed to interact with the person that she was having sex with. And again, just to reiterate what is a freak-off, the freak-off essentially was something that Cassie said she learned about through Sean Combs about a year into their relationship. He described it as voyeurism, wanting to watch her have sex with someone else. And she said that she did it because she was 22, 21, she was young, she didn't know any better, and that she wanted to please Sean Combs.
Among other things, the singer is expected to address the 2016 video of Combs attacking her in a hotel when she was his girlfriend. Combs has pleaded not guilty. His attorneys argue the video is evidence of jealousy, not sex trafficking. And now for the first time, jurors are hearing what Cassie has to say about that and other.
Diddy Combs joined the music business many years ago. He turned unknowns into superstars, built Bad Boy Records from the ground up, and broadened his brand beyond music to embrace media, fashion, and vodka. If the allegations made in court are true, Diddy's impeccable reputation as a business whiz and mentor may have been hiding something far more sinister. Diddy was the epitome of success, the man who proved that hip-hop could actually bring in money for businesses. The Globe was cheering his magazine covers and red carpet appearances at the moment. Cassie Ventura's life was entirely different. In private,
and why she did it. When she talked about wanting to do it to please Sean Combs, that's when she broke down. Up until that point, she had just been answering the questions. She's a little soft-spoken at times, but that's when she got emotional. When she had to answer the question about if she enjoyed it, that's when she broke down, because she said, I enjoyed being with Sean Combs.
The accusations revealed today paint a totally different picture of the man behind the designer fits and polished image Cassie described. A man who has consistently presented himself in interviews as the ultimate pro at tailored suits, clean-cut style, and smooth talk. Court reporters were shocked to see him arrive on day 2, looking much like the Diddy we all saw. He walked into the room as if he owned it, laughing and nodding as if it were another business meeting, but it was a serious, dirty, and intimate one. Witnesses claimed that within 30 minutes of Cassie testifying, his confidence dissolved and his composed, indifferent look started to break, changing his aura.
The physical abuse that she potentially experienced.
Yet, she's definitely laying out someone who was young, who was influenced by wanting to have this record career. She signed a 10-album deal with Bad Boy Entertainment, led by Sean Combs, and basically describes being enamored by Sean Combs, loving him, not knowing about certain things sexually, and him sort of telling her, teaching her about that. And what you hear is someone that was young and she even said, you know, I was young, I was naive, I didn't know any better. But she's really telling the story of someone who thought she was going to be with someone in this music industry that was going to help her career, that cared about her, but quickly learned after the freak-off that wasn't the case. And what I thought was also interesting is she said that after that first freak-off, she said she felt dirty. She didn't want to do it. And when she brought up the idea of having a conversation about the freak-off in an email, which the jurors saw, she said she backpedaled in the email because Combs responded by saying, I know, you don't want to do it. And she said, oh no, well, it's not that. But that was the beginning. That was in 2010, where she brings up in an email that she wanted to have a conversation about this. And in her words,
as she recounted specific incidents from their history, Diddy's legal team appeared to be trying to silence her at every turn. Imagine the man who built a billion-dollar enterprise, oversaw the careers of A-list celebrities, and closed enormous deals one after another, writhing in a courtroom, unable to hide his shock. Diddy was unable to remain motionless while Cassie was speaking, according to witnesses. Diddy was the center of attention as soon as Cassie took the stand, and the power shift was amazing.
She looked forward to the freak-off. Why did Cassie express looking forward to the said freak-off?
When the prosecution asked her, was there ever a time that you enjoyed the freak-offs? This is when Cassie got choked up and she said, I did, but only because I got to spend one-on-one time with Combs, and I really did love him.
And that is speaking to the
People watched as he scrawled desperate messages and pushed them in the direction of his attorneys, seemingly in an attempt to rapidly restore control. Became unmanageable to the point where one of his lawyers had to raise a hand to tell him to slow down. He appeared to have lost all vitality, as his face grew completely white. He then started fiddling with his cufflinks and tie before frantically massaging his hands. It was like seeing someone realize for the first time that they could no longer control the story. A court reporter said. Diddy himself recognized this. Looked ill as Cassie described the past in detail. The following evidence explained why. Diddy was losing it, so the courtroom was ready for its effect when Cassie's testimony progressed into the afternoon. She then made a shocking charge that may potentially shake the music business as a whole. The empire that he had established over decades was in serious danger because the person who had always controlled the story was suddenly up against a version that he was unable to manipulate or spin.
Have wasted no time getting right into the alleged abuse that Cassie Ventura says she endured for years. Ventura telling jurors, quote, he would bash my head, knock me over, drag me, kick me, stomp me in the head when I was down. She also got into the nature of those so-called freak-offs, saying that they involved hiring an escort and they performed under the direction of Combs, saying that they happened so frequently it eventually became a job for her to set them up. Ventura said she did not feel she had much of a choice but to participate, that she feared that Combs would retaliate or potentially blackmail her if she did not. And she's had at times to take, she's taken deep breaths, pausing her
Drop could be heard in the room as Cassie Ventura took the stand. Nothing could have prepared them for what she was going to say, even though everyone knew this moment was coming. Not even Diddy's highly qualified legal team anticipated it would come to this form. Cassie kept quiet and kept everything to herself for years before she eventually had the microphone, which she did. Because she started gently rather than yelling, it struck even more forcefully. She described how she first met Diddy at the age of 19. He already possessed millions of dollars and connections at every level, making him a major force in the music industry. Early on, there was a significant power imbalance as she pursued her goals of becoming a musician while working as a young model.
the defense is going to say is that this wasn't blackmail, this was not coercion, this was consensual. We know that Cassie started out with Sean Combs as an early person with someone who is trying to get her career started, and he was going to help her. That's what the defense is going to say, that she was starting out and wanted someone to support her. They did their first record deal together. That's something I think the defense is going to focus on, and had it not been for Sean Combs, she wouldn't be where she is right now. The prosecution obviously is saying he was in control. It may have started out as a consensual. It may have started out with her being excited about seeing him, but ultimately he took control of that relationship. He took control of her career. This is their key witness, and she's on that stand trying to explain all of the charges that the prosecution wants.
Cassie claims Diddy knew just how to accomplish that. Each piece of her testimony was progressively disclosed, much like a suspenseful narrative. It started with the little things that govern her actions, and it only got worse. Cassie clarified that he was supposed to be aware of her whereabouts at all times in his appearance. When he threatened to bury her songs if she disobeyed his restrictions, and if she worked with other musicians he didn't like, she said he would supposedly ruin the whole project if he felt endangered in the least. He also seemed to be watching her every step, saying that if she was out with others, he would announce
Diddy. Some of those details we've seen in prior lawsuits, but to hear her on the stand actually giving those details, reliving those moments herself, Also, you have to remember, she's very pregnant right now. So I'm gonna be curious to see how long she makes it on the stand, how she's emotionally able to weather all of these questions. And what's gonna be interesting to watch is, you know, the defense from the very start in their opening statement said that she chose to be there. So I'm going to be curious to see how she responds to questions about, was this her choice?
However, the biggest surprise based on court transcripts, Cassie stated Diddy already knew where she was and would call her within minutes of her arrival with tracking software planted on her phone. According to her, he also steadily cut off her friends who would have helped her go, until just Diddy remained. It got so heated that Diddy was unable to maintain it, and the judge had to issue 3 orders. He would make faces the jury couldn't ignore by shaking his head and muttering to his lawyer when the judge checked him. When Diddy quietly took out her phone and gave it to her attorney, the entire courtroom tilted upside down. What came next changed everything. Every 5 minutes or so, Diddy would regain his composure before losing it once more. Seeing a man who had never faced opposition suddenly discover he was no longer in charge was like that.
Who's a producer. So I don't know if that's someone that we're going to hear from. We know that there were pictures shown to prospective jurors that are well-known celebrities, you know, Kanye West, Kid Cudi, Lauren London. We don't know, though, how they fit yet into why they were even asked. Do you know these people? Are you familiar with them?
So the prosecution is questioning Cassie right now, still questioning her.
Defense hasn't even got a chance to, I mean, that might change based on the timing, but you know, because she's such a key witness, it's likely that she will be on that stand the rest of the day. We learned that Cassie referred to him as Pop Pop, and Sean Combs would refer to her as CC. The prosecution says, what does CC stand for? They said
Diddy's expression was utterly stunned as her emails and messages were shown to the world on a big screen. The fact that she still possessed those receipts seemed to elude him. According to reports, he apologized for his violent outbursts in these texts and threatened to destroy her career if she spoke up. Moreover, she included messages that contradicted her claim. As Cassie persisted in her alleged physical abuse throughout their relationship, the audience froze in dead silence. Those were merely warm-up remarks, but she also recalled being thrown against walls during furious disputes. And then one of the scariest portions arrived. The most distressing thing Cassie claimed he did was choke her repeatedly. She almost fainted. He only stopped when her body relaxed and the room changed. Cassie further stated that at a rented home in Miami, he once pushed her down a set of stairs.
What Cassie has to say, and that's to be expected, right? Because she is the person who will likely be on the stand, according to attorneys, for 2, maybe 3 days. She's the one that was in the relationship with Sean Combs for over 10 years. So she's got a lot to say, and she's just getting started.
Just how important is Cassie's testimony to the prosecution?
I think it really connects the dots, Rachel. When you look at that initial indictment and what's being alleged, she really is the person that has probably the most information about this idea that the prosecution says, which is creating a criminal enterprise for Sean Combs' sexual desires. Something else that the jurors saw today that sort of connects it back to this alleged criminal enterprise are 7 photos of people that were very close to Sean Combs, one even his former chief of staff. And these were all people that Cassie Ventura was able to name and explain the functions in terms of what they did: security, driver, chief of staff, someone that handled financials. So it's showing that
As if the intensity of the situation couldn't further increase, Cassie continued. She claimed in court that Diddy threw a champagne bottle at her head, which broke against the wall behind her after missing by a few inches. The room fell silent. Was the sort of turn of events that completely upended the courtroom. As Cassie put it, Diddy lost his temper and ruined the hotel room like a character in a movie. He allegedly punched a hole through the bathroom door, shattered a lamp, and flipped a table, according to her. However, Diddy's outburst was the most terrifying aspect. Diddy, the man who built his empire on being calm, controlled, and always in charge, gave up in front of everyone, and no one in the courtroom will ever forget it. Her confined in that room for almost 48 hours. When this part of the testimony ended, everyone in the room looked to Diddy, and his response was like a clap of thunder. His career might be permanently haunted by this image. When the most trying parts of Cassie's testimony came, the polished facade started to fall apart, exposing something unpolished and unfamiliar underneath. His public persona as a smooth-talking entrepreneur who never folds no matter what was honed over decades. Nobody has ever seen anything like it. Not even seasoned court reporters who have covered the most well-known celebrity trials. He changed in front of them, and although he seemed bossy when he first walked in, he looked cornered by the middle of his testimony.
When you look at her visually, people see that she's pregnant and looking like she's due any day now. So they might, have empathy, sympathy for her in that way, but we don't really know. We know that they've been instructed to be fair and impartial. As to what type of witness she's coming off as, she's describing someone that she was. Someone she said that was trying to figure out who she was at that time and who she was allowed to be. Now you're looking at somebody that's almost 40 years old, totally different person, but even in describing what was going on at her at that time, taking drugs, trying to please Sean Combs, she's really just sort of laying out the case for her not having a lot of control. So I think that's the takeaway. This is someone who is making it very clear that at that particular time in her life, she said she did not have any control really over what she wore, what she did, who she was having sex with. She's a different person now, but I think when she talks about those details and even reflects...
It was said that he had been in total control of Cassie's world for years, but now that she was in command, he could not summon security, quiet her, or make a press statement to set the record straight. Sitting there and listening to her speak her truth was all he could do. For years, Cassie had been storing evidence in the form of emails, texts, and pictures, all of which were backed up and hidden in sites that Diddy couldn't access or delete. And then the moment that shocked everyone in the room was when Cassie revealed that she had gotten text messages from other celebrities who allegedly saw Diddy's acts firsthand. It was a moment, and no one had expected that to happen. These were not only unnamed industry participants, the court transcripts reveal. They were Diddy's closest friends and business associates. Then, in the gallery, a bizarre event happened. Members of Diddy's crew who had accompanied him that morning and sat right behind him in support slowly started to depart. The departures were quiet, without any noise or drama. Backstage during events, his co-workers who had been in his inner circle for years were the ones who had seen stuff the general public was unaware of and attended special parties. The man who entered the courtroom like an impenetrable music mogul was completely destroyed by the strong front he put up in the morning, and Diddy was sitting there with his attorneys, nearly alone, after hearing what had just been presented. After listening to what had just been explained, they couldn't listen to it any longer and didn't want to be seen. Despite not, Diddy looked devastated as he departed the room. What had just transpired in that courtroom could be shielded from him by security. We may be witnessing the collapse of the empire Diddy built over decades. In a single day, Cassie Ventura had the potential to drastically alter his legacy. She did more than simply speak the truth. It is now hard to ignore the picture that was drawn by the proof, communications, images, and testimonies. Instead of whether Diddy will prevail in the case, the real question is please like, subscribe, share, and comment below if you're interested in whether his reputation will ever bounce back after what the world witnessed in that courtroom. Stay tuned for the next one.